Hello everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know, I often get a lot of comments that people think that my ideas for upcycling are super creative, and while I appreciate the comments, and I do think that upcycling is a very creative process, and I do have a lot of sewing experience, but I don't think I have any special creative gifts. To me, it is just a process. So today I want to take you through my creative process and demystify upcycling to hopefully help you gain more confidence and explore your own creativity as you tackle some DIY fashion and upcycling projects. For me, creativity and problem solving are very closely linked. They're almost the same thing. In DIY fashion and upcycling, I use the process of creative problem solving to transform old, unwanted clothing into new, beautiful, sustainable pieces. And the first problem we address with upcycling is the whole problem of fast fashion and throwaway clothing. Upcycling is the perfect way to avoid participating in the environmentally and socially devastating cycle of fast fashion. So creative problem solving uses creativity and critical thinking to identify the problem, generate possible solutions, evaluate those solutions, and hopefully end up with a great end result. So these 8 steps that I'm going to go through aren't really steps. They're more like phases that you can go back and forth through, not necessarily in a linear way. And before we get into those 8 steps, let me say that there are 2 different ways to begin any upcycling project. First is by going and seeking inspiration, deciding what you want to create, and then going to look for the materials or the old garments to create that. The second way is to start with an old unwanted garment and decide what you want to do with it. I do both depending on what I find in thrift stores or in my own closet. But I do think it's easier to start with the inspiration, start with the goal in mind, and then find the garment that's going to help you get there. So let's start with that. For me, step 1 is often just to get inspired. So I'll go to the mall, take a walk around, and I almost never buy anything. I'm not there really to shop. I'm just window shopping and checking out what's new for that season. And I'm not a slave to trends, but I do like to keep current and just see what's going on in the world of fashion. I also go online. I still love Pinterest. There's also a few different fashion influencers that I like to follow and see what they have to say for each season. So as you're looking around, just see what you like, what you don't like, see what catches your eye, and then if you land on something that you'd like to create, try to imagine if you can create that from something old. So stay open-minded and be willing to try new things. This info and inspo gathering will definitely show you some new ideas, maybe alert you to some new techniques, and it will definitely spark your creativity. Then it's time to identify and analyze the problem. And I often feel that thrift store shopping is like shopping for a problem that you're going to have to solve. So as you flip through the racks in the thrift store or in your own closet, try to see the potential in each piece. Try to see the positive. Is there a redeeming feature, a gorgeous color, a high quality fabric, an interesting detail? Anything that kind of catches your eye and has potential. Size doesn't really matter at all, because if it's too big or too small, you can get creative and make it fit. But there definitely are some negatives that are non-negotiable. I will never buy something that just looks tired. You know, if the fabric is starting to pill, or it looks like it was really cheap to begin with, or it looks like it wasn't well cared for and not laundered properly. It just doesn't have anything left to give. Then I just won't buy that. But sometimes there might be one thing that you really dislike about a garment, but the rest of it has potential. So that's kind of what you're looking for. So try to find a few different things to upcycle that are low risk to start with, meaning that it's not super expensive and it's not really a beloved piece. Don't pull out your favorite sweater or your favorite concert t-shirt to decide to upcycle that. Start off with something that's a bit less risky. And then once you've decided on which piece you're going to do, now you're going to assess what you like and what you don't like about that garment. And I often will start a video that way, saying like, oh, I love the color, the fabric is nice, I hate the neckline, whatever it is. So kind of assessing and identifying the problem with the garment. When I was doing this gray sweater, I hated the neckline, but I liked that waffle knit, and I knew that I wanted to do a fringe design. And so that neckline was sort of the problem and the solution. I didn't like the neckline, that had to go, but it gave me the yarn I needed to make the fringe. This process of identifying and assessing the problem can help you move toward your inspiration goal or it can sometimes take you in a whole different direction too, and that's okay too. So then it's time to generate ideas. Do some brainstorming to come up with lots of ideas, lots of different solutions, and don't limit yourself. This is where you want to be really free in your thinking, encourage your own creative thinking, and play. Play is really important here. Let your mind just be free and don't limit any idea. Even if it seems too crazy or too difficult, this is not the time to pare down your ideas. This is the time to just generate loads of ideas. Play, gather different materials together. Like, don't just try to visualize it, but put that garment with other trims, with other fabrics, with other garments, and just let your mind be free to explore possibilities. So there are no bad ideas. Every idea you have will have some potential to it. And at this point, you might need to go back and gather more inspiration for that particular garment. You might need to reevaluate. The steps are fluid. So now that you've generated lots of ideas, it's time to evaluate them. And you'll evaluate them based on some realistic limitations, such as your own skill level, what materials you have on hand or can get, and your own aesthetic preferences. So simplify and start to narrow down your ideas to what's going to lead you to that inspiration goal or to solve the problem you have with that garment. We're not closing any doors yet. You're just choosing a path to go down. You might come back and go a different direction later, and I often do that. But at this point, you have to start moving towards a goal. And that's often the next thing I say in a video is, I think I might do this and this. But that's not carved in stone. I often will double back and change my idea. Once you have a plan in mind, now it's time to take a step back, take a break, and let that idea incubate. You often hear people say that they do their best thinking in the shower or when they're driving or going for a walk. That's because you've unplugged, you've let your mind just have some quiet time, and that's really important as well. For me, my most creative time of day is first thing in the morning. If I've been mulling over a creative problem, I go to sleep, I literally sleep on the problem, and then in the morning when my alarm goes off, I allow myself to hit snooze once, and in those precious minutes, I will literally say to myself, okay, let's have a creative idea now. And it often works. I'll just lay there and go, okay, yeah, okay, I got it. The problem that I've been mulling over in my sleep, suddenly there's a clear and beautiful solution. So then, once you have a solution in mind, now it's time to develop that solution and prepare for it. Once I'm out of bed, and even if I need to get ready for work and go, I will still take a few minutes, make a few notes or sketches, because I want to solidify that idea in my mind before I get on with my busy day and before some negative self-talk can set in. As my day gets going and I reflect back, I might think, oh, that's a dumb idea. That'll never work. That's going to be too hard. Nobody's going to like it. What are you thinking? That's crazy. That's when you lose that creative impulse, right? And that negative self-talk really kills your creativity. And so I want to kind of solidify the idea a little bit while I'm still in that very open-minded and very creative space that I get first thing in the morning. So I'll make my notes or make a little sketch, and then I'll actually just set up my work area and make sure I have what I need. So I'll make sure I've got the right color thread, or see what kind of trims I have or different fabrics that I have that can maybe get pulled into this idea. I'll clean my space and tidy up my work area so that when I get home from work, everything's going to be ready for me. Even last night as I was going to bed, I knew I wanted to film this video this morning before heading off to work. So I cleaned up my area, decided what I was going to wear, had everything ready to go, and then I just had to sit down and get into it. Step 7, implementing your solution. So when I get home from work, it's time to put my plan into action. If my area is all set up for me, then I can just jump right into the fun part, just get into the flow of the creative process. I am so blessed that I have space dedicated to my creative projects. Even if you can just eke out a little corner for your creative work, that's really important. But if you can't have a space permanently set up, then at least set it up in advance for yourself so that when you have that minute, it's there ready for you. So I walk in the door, I just leave any chores till later, come into my sewing room, which is my happy place, and then I can get into the flow. Sometimes, once you're into it, sometimes it all goes as planned and your project just works perfectly. But if you watch my videos, you know that that does not always happen for me. There are going to be bumps in the road. But a speed bump is not a stop sign. So don't let it stop you. They're just part of the process. I don't give up easily, so even when things head south, I can keep working on it and usually get it to the point where I love it. Finally, you can evaluate and improve. So I make my creative process public on my YouTube channel. And so there is a little bit of pressure on me to try to end up with a good result, but it doesn't always happen. The perfect example is that red and gray dress. I tried some different solutions and asked for comments of what you would do instead. I got loads of really great comments, good suggestions, but I just haven't come back to that one yet. It's still hanging in my closet. I might come back to it in a month or 6 months or maybe never. And that's okay too, because the important part here is to do your self-reflection and to reflect on what went well, because there were some things that went great in that, and what didn't go well, and what you learned from it. And I learned a lot from that red and gray dress. And everything that I learned there, I'll be able to apply to future projects. So that self-evaluation is really key for any creative project. When something doesn't go well, I don't beat myself up over it. I don't consider it a failure. There's no bad creative work, right? That creative process is what gives me joy. I still had so much fun making that red and gray dress because I was in the flow. I was in that creative space. And so it's important to enjoy the process, play, have fun with it, and learn from your mistakes as well as from your successes. So that's how I use creative problem solving in my DIY fashion and upcycling. But keep in mind that it's not always step by step. You sometimes have to go back, get more inspiration, reevaluate, rethink, and then continue on maybe a different path. And remember to be kind to yourself along the process. A speed bump is not a stop sign. Don't let it stop you. So I really do hope that this video helps you to have some confidence in your own creative abilities. Upcycling is such a fun and satisfying way to engage in fashion in a way that is sustainable. So have fun with it, and I'll see you back here next week on Catherine Sews. And until next time, you take care.